This is TWiT. The European Parliament yesterday passed the new copyright bill, and that means they passed Articles 11 and 13 unchanged, and this is a big freaking deal. Now, it's not law because each country has to then endorse it, and they can change it. It's very likely that we'll see France endorse it first, since really it was France that pushed this new copyright law.
And just to confuse everything, they've changed Article 13. It's Article 17.
Yeah. Oh, that's never mind. No problem. This despite millions of petition signatures, phone calls, letters, complaints from the big internet companies and regular internet users. So first of all, this is a general copyright bill. It's called Copyright in the Digital Single Market Directive, whatever that is. And it's not a directive. It's a directive, not a law. So because it's a directive, the EU nations now have 2 years to do something called transpose it, which is make it their own law, written into their law, and possibly modified for that country. So countries have until 2021 now. France will almost certainly jump on this.
And I think that's actually part of the problem, is that we don't know how lots of these countries are going to interpret this somewhat vague descriptions of the things that the EU agreed to. And so you could actually wind up with this incredibly sort of balkanized process where if you do something in, Denmark, it's okay, but if you do exactly the same thing in France, it's not okay.
Which one of you would like to? Why don't you take this, Mathew? Tell us what Articles 11 and now 17 say and what it means.
So 11, without going into too much detail, 11 is about upload filters. I'm pretty sure I have that right. So is the link? So is 11 the link text? Okay. So 11 is, broadly speaking, gives content owners the right to charge aggregators for excerpts of their content.
So this is aimed at Google, because Google puts, it's the snippet tax. Google puts little snippets in its search results. Google News has larger chunks. Google's already said if this is the law of the land in Europe, then we will no longer be able to do Google News. They even showed a little extremely a picture of what search results would look like in Europe after this. But what we wouldn't see anymore is snippets. This is, by the way, not something. This is something that's been tried. Spain did it and Germany did it, both with very little success.
And Google pulled out of Spain completely.
Yeah.
There is no Spanish Google News.
Right. So that's 11.
So
that's the snippet tax.
Yeah, and one of the things that's vague about it is it says that you can charge for...
by the way, that Google says, this is what the internet is going to look like.
No excerpts. Yeah. It looks like the page failed to load.
Yeah.
Which was obviously partly a PR effort. Look how terrible things look.
But if you did search for a story, you would just get Daily Star and a link, and you wouldn't know anything about the headline or anything, because those are all snippets.
And one of the things that's...
Mathew, you may not know, I'm just curious, what has this done in Spain, for example, to those publishers and their traffic?
It's killed traffic.
So it has reduced traffic, but not by as much as you might think.
Oh.
Yeah. So it has, definitely. I think the last estimate I saw, there was a study done. It was in the neighborhood of 15 to 20%, which is still
that's not bad.
Serious.
I mean,
it's not, but it's still significantly, changed those businesses. And Germany, I think, when they, Axel Springer removed itself effectively from Google News, and I think it said that it saw traffic declines of like 60%. So one of the things that makes this particular article difficult is it just says that publishers, content owners can charge for excerpts that aggregators like Google are allowed to use short excerpts. It doesn't say how short.
Oh boy.
It doesn't say a number of words.
It
doesn't. So this is all going to be open to interpretation.
Right.
Is it 10 words? Is it 100 words? Is it 800 words? Yeah.
Well, and the worst, it might be different in each country.
Exactly. So then the second one, 13, which is now 17, is effectively makes any tech platform like Google or Facebook or Twitter responsible for the content that gets uploaded. And those companies are required to remove copyrighted content before it gets uploaded to prevent it from being uploaded.
To me, much more significant.
It's potentially, the ramifications are huge.
So now, for instance, when we upload something to YouTube that has material in it that a copyright holder disputes, there's a takedown process using the Digital Millennium Copyright Act. But there's also a defense for us, the fair use defense, that we're a news organization. Apple, for instance, took down the YouTube video of our coverage of Apple's event on Monday. They also did a takedown on iOS Today, which we showed a small little snippet of one of the movie clips or something, like less than a minute. In both cases, we'll dispute it and say, no, it's fair use. This is commentary on a news story. We're a news organization. And YouTube will say, oh, yeah, never mind, and bring it back up after some period of time. And so there's a week or two that you're down, that you lose that revenue. That's the process today.
Right. And
under
Section
Article
230.
Section 230 allows fair use.
And it also protects the platforms from any liability.
That's important.
Right.
They get a safe harbor exemption. They can't be punished.
Right. And all they have to do is sort of make a good faith attempt to take content down when someone complains. So the EU directive would completely reverse that. So there is no protection, for anything that's uploaded.
There's no
and in
fair
fact,
use exemption.
The onus is on the companies to prevent it, sort of prior restraint, if you want to think of it that way, to stop stuff from being uploaded. So the risk is they'll just stop everything, or at least huge quantities of stuff that arguably is, fair use or fair dealing, as it's called in the UK and Australia and Canada.
I think Google's moving closer to this anyway with YouTube, because our takedowns happen much faster, and I'm guessing that they're tuning up Content ID to do it on submission as opposed to on posting, right? That as soon as you submit something, they'll have to with this Article 17.
It's the only way to do it.
Yeah. Which means our stuff will get turned down before it is even aired.
They actually, it would not surprise me if you're right, Leo. I missed your episode on the Stadia news last week, but if you recall, using the Google Assistant button on that, when you're playing a streaming game on Stadia, it knows where you are and brings up a YouTube video at that specific spot in the game if you need help.
Right.
So the technology is in some ways already there.
Yeah, I'm sure Google's been thinking about this and planning for it. That this seemed inevitable, and they had it, an experience of it. The snippet tax in Germany and Spain. That's that Leitung-Direct that Jarvis keeps talking about.
There's also been a huge amount of pressure on them in both Germany and France to remove hate speech and basically illegal speech.
Right.
So they've been gearing up to do that because there are massive fines involved if they don't take down sort of speech that breaches the rules within 24 hours.
I'm concerned, and I mean, obviously there's lots of concern about this new Article 17/13. But I feel like something like what we do, which is commentary on news, and almost always the commentary on news is on somebody else's copyright story, would be jeopardized by something like this.
So the EU has said that there were a number of complaints, obviously, one being the upload filter was going to stop lots of stuff that was not copyright infringement, that it would stop people from, say, uploading memes and so on that use copyrighted content, but as a form of commentary. So the EU has said that's not the case. That's not what we want to do. GIFs and memes will be protected, journalistic and academic.
I got to point out, they're not protected.
Well, and they're not the ones who are going to be implementing it. They're just saying this is our principle.
Yeah, we don't want to punish memes.
Exactly.
But it's not if you don't want to punish memes, you put it in the law. Otherwise, it's the interpretation of the countries and the courts.
Right. And that's the risk, is that each of these countries are going to interpret it, in some cases in the most draconian way possible.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So is this really all about revenues for these publications, I guess I should say? I'm trying to look at it from my perspective as a publisher. All three of us on the show are publishers, obviously. I don't have like subscription fees and things like that. I have my commentary out for free on the web. It's ad supported, obviously, but I'm trying to figure out. I get the memes.
I don't think they even mention commercial versus non-commercial.
Yeah, see, that's an interesting aspect to me, because I understand a publication that wants to preserve its revenues and so on, but we know that's been declining for years. And I'm just this nobody sitting in my, house with my dog blogging. And I actually like having news snippets in Google News. It brings me traffic, obviously. So I'm just trying to figure out where I fit in and how this all is going to work.
Yeah. And I think, obviously this goes back decades, or a decade in some cases. The feeling on the part of European publishers that Google in particular has been stealing content from them, stealing revenue from them. They've been putting pressure on the company, for God knows how long. And it's led effectively to these kinds of restrictions. I'm not convinced that they're even going to help, that they're even going to sort of accomplish what these publishers and copyright holders theoretically want.
So we'll just watch with interest. I don't know. There's hope in one respect, because there's still time to lobby individual countries. Although there was a lot of lobbying over the weekend, 200,000 people took to the streets across Europe. There are 5 million signatures on a petition, and the Parliament quickly passed the resolution, the directive anyway. So I don't know what kind of hope we're going to have, but I think it's, as I've said before, it's up to our listeners in the EU to try to moderate this in their individual countries, because there's nothing I could do about it from here.
Just to make it even worse, I saw a piece, I think, in The Guardian that said some of these EU members voted wrongly, voted incorrectly, because they
didn't understand what
voted. No, they voted for the wrong article because of the way it was structured. So some of those votes might actually not have been, they could theoretically have been against those articles. And one estimate I saw said that if they had voted the other way, they wouldn't have passed. So there's a voting issue there as well.